Hello.
Hola, how are you?
Fantastic. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, yep.
Okay, so as people come in, some may come in as panelists, so I will bump them over back to attendees. And then, did you get my slideshow?
Hmm.
Yes? Okay. So
Yep.
we're just going to kind of go over a few things. And then
Okay.
I know that last one is kind of more of a wrap up, stay connected, but I'll segue to yours.
Right, right.
So we're almost ready.
Yes. All
I'm
right.
looking forward to it.
I am too. That first part of the meeting, man, I got to not feeling so good because I'm listening to that girl and there kept being more and more questions. I'm like, this doesn't seem like an intro session that I'm in, right?
Oh,
So I was sitting there watching them launch the drones and I kept thinking, okay, maybe it'll wrap up with the last question. And I didn't know. And so, man, it kind of threw me off. I was like, I don't know. Okay, now where I just was reading those. Uh,
so I will, all right now, make sure all panelists can share. So we should be good there. Can you share?
um, yes.
Okay. I know sometimes when I get my screen sharing, it's
Hmm.
hard for me to maneuver in and out myself.
So can you
All
see
of
the slides, right?
I
You see
can,
the whole thing. So I need to be in this view
yeah,
when I launch it.
right. And so
Okay.
when I'm in that view,
Hmm.
I lose a lot of the controls on the Zoom side of things. And
Oh,
so,
now you don't lose it if I do this, do you?
no,
Okay.
no, you're fine. But on my side, I do. And so there may be an odd segue in there. Um,
Okay.
so,
So then on this session that we're doing, so
mhm.
you're going to go into your slides first
Yes,
and then talk to the thing. And that's waiting for all these attendees to show up.
yes,
And then we'll literally go through the slides and then open it up for questions.
yes. However, when you start to talk,
Hmm.
I'll monitor the Q&A. And then that way, if there's something pertinent to where we're at in your slides,
Sure.
I'll try to jump in there with those.
Okay. About how long do you want me to take with the slides?
We actually have 50 minutes.
Okay.
And so we want to allow time at the end for just general talk and Q&A if there is any.
Sure. Sure.
So I would think give yourself at least a half hour.
Okay. Well,
Um,
because there may be questions when I get back there to the links. So I'm going to go through those slides, not necessarily quickly, but just not belabor the point, because you can head down rabbit holes easily.
uh-huh.
So yeah, just trying to stay on topic and get through so they have time to ask, you know, about those
Right.
things. Yeah.
So
So how do you think the conference is going so far?
I think it's going great. Oh my gosh. I loved Zipline. That was fantastic.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of YouTube things and Drone DJ has articles on occasion and all that. But it's just different when you get to talk to people who are part of it.
Yes.
It's not the glossed over kind of version that we get, just a little sneak peek, but that's pretty awesome. I
It,
like how they pre-programmed with waypoints all of their flight paths.
I
That's
know. And even
awesome.
the battery. That was surprising to me. I had
Right.
no
Well,
idea it
and
was actually in the
I'm
battery.
right. Well, I'm just thinking there's a CPU in there, just like it is when we load up a flight plan in some of your autonomous flight apps, like Drone Deploy. I fly Drone Deploy,
Mhm.
and it loads it up, and it just flies, flies, flies. You can change batteries 3 or 4 times, and it's just steady flying.
Hmm.
So yeah, I could see it doing the same thing, of course, with a larger battery.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah, well,
Well,
cool.
I'm really surprised we don't have anybody here yet. Uh-oh, it's just me and you.
Oh man.
I hope I didn't do
Well,
something wrong.
I must have scared them off from the get go. I'm like, oh man.
Oh my gosh.
Dang
Wow.
it.
I hope it's okay.
Yeah, right. I hope those links worked as advertised. That's the part that always makes me leery, because you can test those things and go to that room. But once it comes D-Day, it's like that bad boy's got to work then too.
Yes, yes. And the original one that see, I had made you and Ken panelists. And
Mhm.
the original one I sent to him was for the panelist. And then I said, and then so he could get in. And then here's the one for the attendees. And the one that he posted was his
Ah,
as a panelist.
right. Well, I
And
know when I come in this morning,
Mhm.
I was somebody else. Like it was so weird, like
I
a
was
Poyer or
too.
Pointer or something like that.
Who?
And so I looked up at my name. I'm like, oh man, I know I copied pasted the right link because that was the one I took out of your note things yesterday, or yeah, yesterday on the phone. Um, but then when it had my name in there as somebody else, I'm like, holy smoke, do we all got different links?
Yeah.
I didn't know. But anyway, it eventually changed to my name. So maybe
Yeah.
somebody saw it and said, hey, that's not him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I had a similar thing too. And when I
Hmm.
logged back in, it said me.
Hmm.
So right now I'm me and you are you. Do you say your last name McWirt?
Yes.
McWirt. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I'm worried. I hope our links are working. Nobody's here.
Yeah, because normally people should be here within 7 minutes still, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Oh boy, I hope everything's okay. But you and I are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And out of 100, and was it 190?
yeah.
That's a nice size get together.
Yes,
Now, is this free for the teachers?
I think it is, but I
Okay.
don't know for sure.
Okay.
And then also I noticed there's several other, I think classes kind of going on right now, other webinars, I
Mhm.
think. And so ours would not be the only one, but you would think somebody would want to know about it.
Right.
Right? I don't
Well, and they may be waiting because is everything set up for about 50 minutes? So that session is going to end about 1:50,
Yeah, I
and
think,
then the next one will start at 2.
yeah.
Okay. Well, then that's because if they seem to run a little bit over. I know out in Vegas, they try to do pretty good about that because they got to get you to the next spot,
Yeah.
you know?
So I hope that everybody's getting in okay with the links that have been provided.
Yeah.
Well, if not, we're going to have a nice session with just the two of us. I'm sure Ken will be happy with me. Okay. But they should be able to come in as a panel. Oh, I have somebody. I do. We have Franklin. He's joining us now.
Awesome.
So as we get started, we will bump people over from panelists to attendees so as not to make things kind of awkward as far as the view for everybody. We do have a couple more people jumping in here now. So we'll give it a couple minutes. We want to welcome everybody and give it a couple minutes while we get things going here.
Of course.
It still have a few more minutes. Like you said, they're still in some other rooms. So
Right.
we'll give it a couple more minutes. So safety is so important. So I hope we get a lot of people here that want to learn about the safety side of things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I am also going to put out that we won't be using the chat. So I turned that feature off so that everything will go through the Q&A. All
So
right.
now whenever these guys come in, do they just pop up on the view?
They are showing up under, I have this screen where it says panelists at the very bottom,
Oh, I see
or
3 participants.
participants.
Mhm.
It'll say panelists and attendees. And so it'll bring it up. Plus, I have everything set on my end to where it gives a little sound effect when people are popping in. And that way it comes to my attention and I'll
Mm,
be able to monitor it for people.
gotcha.
Yeah. Well, Franklin, you are the first. Oh, we have Marisol now jumping in here. We want to welcome people. We're going to give it a couple more minutes because people are just coming from one program and into this one. So we don't want to get started too soon. We're scheduled to be started at 2 o'clock Central Time. I, by the way, am located in California, so it's a little off for me, but Mike here is, you're in Central Time, aren't you?
Central Time, yes.
Okay. Okay. And then we will be using the Q&A as we go through our program today. So we're going to give it a couple minutes, not quite 2 o'clock yet, so we'll get started soon. Feel free to put something in the Q&A if you have something specific that you'd like us to address later on in this presentation. I will start a screen share. All right, I assume you can see my screen.
Mhm.
Drones in the classroom, that's where we are. So I took the lead from Mike, who sent his presentation over, and I said, hey, I could put a drone in there too, right? So while we wait for a few people to jump in, I thought I'd share that particular drone right there is an Autel Evo 2 Pro. It's a very nice drone that they put out right now. And that one I believe is the 6K. So I know they have a lot of different choices. Yeah, so looks like we have a few more people jumping in here. Amy, Christine, Doug, welcome everybody. So we'll kind of get the ball rolling. We do have just under an hour. So I do want to kind of get going here and then we'll circle back to anything that anybody has questions on or anything. But Mike is with us here today. So I know we want to get to his presentation because it's fantastic. So today we are talking about drones in the classroom. And I want to introduce myself and kind of go over a few of the, there we go. Check out that a little effect I had going on, right? While we're letting people jump in here, I do want to introduce myself and Mike, who will be presenting today. My name is Desi Eckstein, and my handle that I go by is Drone Diva Desi. And I am a adjunct instructor at TCI Maricosta College. It's in Carlsbad. I've been flying actually for about 6 or 7 years in the UAS industry. And I am a AUVSI top level 3 instructor and pilot. And I also am the lead safety rep for San Diego for the Drone Pros. And then I'm also an instructor with a STEM class called Girls Take Flight. And so been in the industry for quite a while, instructing on both sides. I also have my own company, and so I'm a service provider. So I'm out there working in the field as well. Mike, he is with us today, Mike McWirt. He is a drone pilot ground school, and Mike founded and grew a high school drone program as an aerospace science instructor. Prior to teaching, he served nearly 28 years in the U.S. Air Force. Thank you, Mike, where he held various management and leadership roles in human resources, supporting personnel ground around the globe. Mike has a BS in Industrial Technologies from Southern Illinois University and an MA in Management and Leadership from Webster University. He's lived in many unique places, as I can only imagine, and he's now living in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So we are super excited to hear from him today. He will be joining us here shortly with a PowerPoint presentation. And kind of what we're going to be talking about today is obviously there's so many opportunities, and a lot of times it's just getting started. So we'll be discussing starting that drone program at your institution. We'll be kind of going over some of the things, where do you begin? That's always a good question that we always get asked. Where do we even start? We'll be discussing some of the rules and regulations and how they will apply to you. And what are the hurdles that you may have to go through as far as FAA regulations and how you can overcome them. And then this part's really fun because we talk about some of the tips and tricks that will help your program be a success. And we'll dive deep into starting a program, what you need to consider, how you want to present it, some of the background information that you'll want to have ready before you present it to your institution. We'll talk about the legalities of it, insurance, SOPs, grants. I know Mike has a really great information about grants. You'll be wanting to know more about the curriculum. So I know there's several people here at this actual event that's happening today that have some curriculum that's available. And so you'll have a lot of choices that are out there for that. A lot of questions that we get, what drone do we choose? So we're going to go over that. Safety, safety, safety. Safety is huge. We're going to talk a little bit about safety as well. Talk about the location. I even have a couple pictures up here you want to consider when you're thinking location, because the picture on the lower right was a location that I actually had to use myself when I went in to do a STEM class, and they said, well, you're going to have about 20 to 30 kids. And that was my space. So safety, the space that you're going to be in is something you really want to consider. We're going to be going over the FAA space as well. Mike's going to talk about airspace a bit and tell you a little bit about, okay, now you're going to transition indoors, outdoors, what you might be dealing with when it comes to airspace. And then think about some of the advanced learning opportunities that you have for yourself, as well as what you might be presenting. AUVSI TOP is a program. I know Drone Pilot Ground School has a program. There's a lot of different opportunities out there. Another thing that I'm going to talk about a little bit really quick, is you want to stay connected. So you'll leave this event going full excitement and on board to get going. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now where do I get some of this information? So you want to stay connected. The industry changes so fast. So this event is actually happening at a really good time. National Drone Safety Awareness Week with the FAA is coming up next week, kicks off on Monday. And a lot of it has to do with education and outreach and STEM. Hashtag Drone Week, and you'll see a lot of activities of people that are doing some outreaches. I personally am part of a outreach program that we do. It's a Drone Connections through Women in Drones, and it's on Tuesday mornings. It's a great way to stay connected, ask questions. Some of the speakers that are here today, LaQuada Sumter, Megan Salter, they are all people that have actually been on our program. And so we have ways to stay connected. In your area, you'll find also that the FAA has a drone program. And so if you look at the FAST team, You can reach out to somebody if you have an FAA question. They're right there and available for you. Women in Drones, on the go video, Drone Pilot Ground School. That's the one Mike is with. They have a UAV coach puts out a newsletter that's great. So you want to check that out as well. So with that being said, I would like to stop my screen share. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike because I'm super excited. He has so much knowledge and I can't wait to hear some of the stuff that he's going to be sharing. And if you have any questions or anything as we go through, pop those into the Q&A and I will be monitoring that as he goes through his slides. Mike.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay,
Thank
I'll start
you
my.
very much. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's a great opportunity to get to share with people because I've been in their shoes. Just to give you a little bit of background of how I ended up in that ROTC program and standing up a drone program was the Air Force sent us a drone and said, hey, incorporate some STEM education into the classroom. But the part that I didn't really get at first was they included no curriculum. So I got the drone and that was it. So I started through YouTube videos and I would take it to the park. And my biggest fear was being smarter than the kids when I actually broke it open in the class. And so there's just a lot to know. You gotta be able to get yourself out of predicaments if those kids happen to get you in a predicament. And so there's just things you have to know. But anyway, I've been with Drone Pilot Ground School now for about 3 years. I started in 2017. And I did that as a way to submerge myself into the drone industry. There was no other way. I mean, I was reading all kind of material trying to get up to speed, but unless you're kind of in it to win it, you just can't know what all these people know. And you think they're so smart, but it's just, they're doing this kind of work. So anyway, just kind of submerge yourself in that environment. So one of the first things that you need to consider when you're looking at implementing a drone program or a STEM program in your class is, what are you going to use that drone for? It could be a quadcopter, it could be a vehicle. So anyway, we're going to look at some of those things that you may decide to use it for. I spoke earlier about building an inclusive program. A lot of kids can't come after school. You know, then you got the female and male thing. And so there's some considerations that you need to really think about to have a successful program. We'll also look over the recreational rules and commercial rules, the steps that you need to go through to get a remote pilot certificate. I'm going to share some scholarship opportunities that we have. And then finally, I have some resources and tips. Also, I have a slide that has links to some pretty cool things that I think you'll enjoy. Okay, so how will you use your drones? If you're a computer science class or something that's going to get into programming or coding, I think some of the app development classes, there's a quadcopter called the DJI Tello Rise that is very popular on the programming side. They use Python. Also, there's a little vehicle that DJI has. It's called a RoboMaster, and it's a four-wheel, you know, basically a little car, for lack of a better word. But you can program it to shoot and turn corners and do various things. When you start looking at bringing this into your classroom, curriculum is huge. Drone Blocks happens to be at this conference, and they offer a very low-cost solution to curriculum that you can use inside of your classroom. Believe it or not, flying a drone, you'll actually learn a little bit about photography and videography. I never thought about that when I started flying, but what you'll discover is you quickly accumulate a lot of pictures and a lot of video, and you've got to do something with that. And you'll start delving into your camera settings, and then you start getting into photo and video editing, whether that's with iMovie or if you've got some other, if your class or your school has a different editing software, it's an awesome opportunity to learn. Maybe you're just going to learn to fly. Maybe you have some kids that are, you know, they say they're interested in getting certified. That may be the direction you head. most of the drone apps, well, I should say most, I'll say from the Phantom 3 and up will have a built-in flight simulator in the DJI Go app. For those of you that are in colder places, inclement weather, often high winds, you can still tap into getting some stick time with that flight simulator. But I will caution you, the kids get bored quickly with that. And the reason being is they're used to first-person shooter games, and there's a lot of graphics. These flight simulators, not so much. It's more to get acquainted with the app and your stick controls. But that option is there. Learn the rules, the recreational rules as well as commercial rules. If you don't have a remote pilot certificate, you cannot operate under the commercial rules. 16 years old to receive or actually obtain the remote pilot certification. Now, you will hear and read, and it's true, the kids can take it at 14, but they actually can't get the remote pilot certificate until they turn 16. So don't get confused with that and have students want to go take the test early because they still can't fly commercially. I'm going to foot stomp the owner's manual. That is something that most Americans, pretty much with every electronic device I've had, I've never delved into that first. But the owner's manual for drones is super important. It keeps you out of trouble. It makes you aware of settings that you need to set before flying. And there's a ton of information in there, the advanced flight modes, and it just has a lot of information. That's something that you guys can discuss with the students. I recommend a quiz just to make sure they're reading it and understanding what they're reading. Just to throw out some ideas as far as drones, that's a common question that we get. I want to do this drone thing, but I don't know what to buy. So most cameras on a drone will do what you guys are looking for. A 12 megapixel camera is adequate. The DJI Mavic Mini, the Mini 2, they're getting away from the Mavic part of that name. And then the Mavic Air 2 is 3 small, foldable, kind of non-intimidating drones that are less than $1,000. It offers great quality for what you're paying. If you jump that up, if you get into mapping, or you need something with higher resolution, you could consider something like a Mavic 2. They make a Pro as well as a Zoom, and they also have the Phantom 4. And that keeps you under the ballpark of less than 2,000, but they're both quality products. We're not DJI fanboys necessarily, but what you have to understand about the drone industry is DJI is the bull in the china shop when it comes to that. They probably got, I would say now, probably close to 80% of the industry. And they just make high quality products. They're repeatable, they're safe, they're reliable. They're just good products. So anyway.
Mike, can I ask a question really quickly?
Sure.
Can you kind of explain a little bit about the Part 107 certificate, what's kind of required? You mentioned that they had to be 16 to actually take the test.
Mm-hmm.
And then is that required for them to fly inside? Can you maybe share a little bit about what it is?
Okay, sure. So let me go to, let's talk about the commercial rules right quick. I'll just jump forward.
Okay,
so,
sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So when we talk, the drone industry uses interchangeable terms, and it's sometimes confusing. Commercial rules will sometimes be referred to as a Part 107 rules. That's because it comes from CFR 14 Part 107. That's the rule set that governs commercial flights with drones. So you'll notice that one of their first rules, and this is their rules, I didn't paraphrase this. This is coming from the FAA.gov website. You need a remote pilot certificate in order to operate under Part 107, and you must be 16 to qualify for the remote pilot certificate. That does not mean taking the test. If you fly a drone under the Part 107 rules, it has to be registered. The Mavic Mini created such confusion and chaos in the drone industry, thinking it was kind of under the radar kind of thing. Well, the FAA has since went back and kind of clarified their language. All drones used for commercial purposes, and commercial purposes means if it's in the furtherance of a business, if you're receiving direct or indirect compensation. For instance, a real estate agent goes to take pictures of a home. He doesn't charge the client. Is that commercial? Absolutely, because he's going to be paid once he sells that home. That's indirect compensation. If your students were to go, say, contact a real estate agent and get some gigs lined up where they take photos and they make $100 or 100, whatever they make, then that is considered commercial work. So either the teacher, the instructor, someone is going to be on site supervising that operation that has a remote pilot certification, and then that transaction can take place. If your students does not have a Part 107, they have to fly under the direct supervision of someone who does if they're going to do commercial type work. The person operating the drone, flying it with the sticks in their hand, does not necessarily need a Part 107, the remote pilot certification, in order to fly under the Part 107 rules, but they do have to be under the direct supervision of someone. Now, Part 107, these rules apply to the national airspace. So like the photo that Desi showed leading up to my presentation, she was inside of a classroom. These Part 107 rules do not apply. As long as that drone cannot get out into the national airspace, you guys are golden. Flying in gyms, large auditoriums, things like that. The rules that we discuss primarily deal with flights out in the national airspace. So there is some differences. All right, let me go back. Okay, yeah, we did the drones. Okay, any questions on this stuff that I've covered so far?
Yes, feel free to put questions into the Q&A and we'll address them as we go along. And then we also will circle back to any that may pop up.
Okay, I'm gonna press. Okay, building an inclusive program. I didn't understand why the students, so the area that I'm in, it's pretty agricultural. And the students are more into FFA than they were, the techie stuff. So when we got the drone and we started learning to fly, I noticed that some of the kids they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so finally I had to have this conversation going, so why do you guys not want to fly? And they go, well, that thing's expensive and my parents can't pay for it. So it's just best if we kind of put things out on the table to begin with. I wasn't going to let them crash it, but in the back of their mind, they just know bad things could happen and it gets costly to replace. So maybe you want to put that out there with your students when you first start. If you have the opportunity to fly during your class, we were fortunate the second year we had block scheduling. So I had the students for an hour and a half and it worked well. So I could take advantage of some flight time during the school day instead of it being an only after school program. So give that some thought as well. You're going to find I've pretty much, I'm not saying forced, I highly encouraged all of my students to at least try it. And a lot of the students, well, several of the students, just that wasn't their bag. But now let's flip that. And there were things that they were interested in, drone related. They love seeing the footage. They love the videos and the photos. So we started tapping into the whole editing thing. Because remember, you take a bunch of pics and videos, you got to do something with it or it's just taking up hard drive space. And so that was a way to pull in some of those other students that didn't really necessarily care to fly, but they liked being part of that program. Create positions. Been in a military setting, everything, it's kind of structured. And so there's duty titles and there's positions that we can create. But if you create positions, as far as crew member positions, that your guys could be given a duty title and you're going to be the visual observer for these flights. And this guy's going to be the maintenance officer, or maintenance crew, whatever. But it makes them be, it gives them a role to play in that. Maybe they're not into the whole piloting thing. So that's another way that you can help students be a part of something. Also involve other classes. The band, I'm telling you guys what, the band wants that high shot. They love that field show. When they go practice, if you look at all, I don't care what city, what state, the band director is trying to get up on the highest perch he can so that he can see his kids across that field. Your drones are awesome for that. It is absolutely awesome. Football team, math and science classes, law of signs. When they get to that point in the year in the trig class or algebra 2, discuss, hey, could we do a project out on the football field with the kids and, so Koatoa kind of thing. It fits in well, and it's a real world problem, because then you could say the students calculated that we need to take it up to 90 feet. Well, take it up to 90 feet. Let's look at the screen. Can we see the entire field? Nope, then that's not the correct answer. Now we'll recalculate and let's do it again. So it gives them some real world experience with that drone. It was actually pretty awesome. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the commercial rules. Now these are recreational rules. This applies to everyone that flies a drone, period. Weight doesn't matter. These are the rules. So it says you need to register your drone and apply the registration number to the exterior surface. And you carry that registration number with you. Just put it in your drone case. The Mavic Mini, like I said before, was the exception to this because it weighs less than 249 grams or 250 grams. The weight is the kicker when it comes to recreational registration. But most drones beyond the Mavic Mini, once you start getting that $400 class of drone and up, most all of them are going to require registration because they will actually weigh over that 250 grams.
So can I ask a question here?
Sure.
About registration?
Mm-hmm.
Does one number go on every drone, or should we do them individually?
That's a good question. So if you register your drones, say your class gets 4 drones, you can register them recreationally under your name or an account, and that registration number can be applied to all of those drones, right? So one registration number, all drones for recreational purposes. Now let's flip that. Let's say that you were going to use those drones for financial purposes. That turns into commercial work. That means that each one of those drones would need to be registered separately. When you get into commercial registration, the make, the model, and the serial number are required on the FAA Drone Zone, that application that you complete. When you do recreational registration, it's just basically in your name. It lets the FAA know that, hey, I fly drones. Doesn't ask for the make, the model, the serial number, anything that you're flying, but you just simply put your personal information in there, and then you get a registration number. The cost to register is $5. Okay, $5. And I put links because there's a lot of bogus websites that will charge you 50 to 100 bucks to do this thing for you. And you can do it literally in a couple minutes and $5. So I'll provide a link for that.
And do you recommend putting it in the institution's name?
I think you can actually put the business name on there. And the reason for that, and you'll see, and we're going to talk a little bit about getting an organizational account, email account. When you as an instructor or teacher start signing up for all these things, everything is in your name. I didn't realize the impact of that until I got ready to leave my position. And then there was nobody to transfer it to because it had to all be redone because it was all in my name. Registration is not transferable. If you're going to work on your commercial, getting your certification, I would recommend registering your drones for commercial use. If you're going to push that down the road, you can go ahead and register as a recreational pilot and fly them. But the registration cannot be transferred from recreation to commercial. So it'll cost you another $5 per drone when you decide to do it again.
And that's, I think, good for what, 3 years?
That's good for 3 years, sure is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so you probably heard the 400-foot rule by this point. We beat that to death. The reason 400-foot rule, there's 400 feet AGL. Drones measure their altitude from the takeoff point. Okay. So mean sea level doesn't come into play in the drone world yet, I'll say. So everything is 400 feet or below. Manned aircraft are supposed to stay 500 feet and above. Now, having said that, that does not necessarily apply to helicopters, military aircraft, crop dusters. There's certain low-flying aircraft that are technically supposed to stay at 500 feet as they transition from point A to point B. However, in my area where I'm at now, that does not happen. Guard and Reserve weekends, it's a time to be aware of your surroundings. And then also crop dusting season, which starts like in March, runs through August. That's another time of year that you need to be really cautious and pay attention to your surroundings because those aircraft will be on you quick. You don't have the horsepower to get out of the way. And drones have to yield to manned aircraft. So you've got to look, listen, and take action to stay out of those guys' way. Recreational rules now requires pilots to get an airspace authorization. Prior to the Reauthorization Act of 2018, we simply notified the airport and we went to fly. Well, all that's changed. The airport cannot give you authority to fly if you're within that controlled airspace, Class B, C, D, or E. They cannot give you permission to fly. You have to obtain that approval from the FAA. And there's one of two ways you can do that. And I've got a link that'll, a guide, but you either do it through an app on your phone or you're going to have to go through the FAA drone zone. But anyway, recreational pilots need an airspace authorization if they're going to fly in controlled airspace. Keep your drone within visual line of sight. Common sense will kick in here. When it gets where you can't see it, or it gets that, you know, you're taking another person's pin, you're going, hey, do you see it? You're probably a little far away, right? Don't fly at night without lighting. Okay, so your drone, whenever you buy a drone, there's going to be red lights in the front, green lights in the back. Those are status lights. Those are not anti-collision lights. You're allowed to fly 30 minutes before sunup. Well, I'm talking Part 107, so I need to stop. If you fly your drone during the hours of, we'll call it darkness or dusk, you need to have anti-collision lights on that drone, as well as that helps you understand the location. You need to be able to tell the orientation of that drone. Now, no need to get those red and green lights and put on your drone because your drones are normally so small, the left and the right side of the aircraft, it's really not that far apart so that you could tell if you're flying away from you or returning home. Most of the apps will give you a heads up image in the lower left-hand corner. You'll know the direction that aircraft's heading if it's returning to home or if you're heading away from yourself. So there's some little ways that you can know. Give way to manned aircraft. Never fly over a person or moving vehicle. This is what everybody wants to do. That flying over moving vehicles causes distractions. People are already distracted enough with cell phones. We don't need that flashing drone beeping down on that road. That could be a huge problem. Flying over people, we still have to worry about the drone falling. But honestly, there has not been very many at all reported accidents with drones just falling out of the sky. So I think we've done well on that front. Stay away from emergency response areas. Fires, floods, landslides, you know, whether it be hurricane, the disaster relief guys that come in, stay out of there unless you have permission to fly. Normally there's a TFR, a temporary flight restriction that gets activated, and your drone should go off and say, hey, dude, we're not supposed to fly here. Never fly under the influence of drugs or alcohol. When it talks about drugs, this could also be over-the-counter prescriptions, or it could be meds that you're currently on. Drone pilots are not required to take a physical as the same way as a man, you know, like a class 1, 2, or 3 physical as a manned pilot. We self-police that. So if you're on medications that could cause you to black out or have an adverse reaction, it might not be good that you flew that drone. So keep that in mind with your kids too. Epilepsy diabetes, things of that nature. Kind of keep tabs on that. And again, don't fly your drone in a careless or reckless manner. Privacy in subdivisions or in areas where there's a reasonable expectation of privacy can be an issue. If you reached out to a real estate agent in your area and he got the kids some jobs, or he decided to hire them to get them some experience, one of the rules or one of the steps that you need to take is to have them coordinate with the neighbors next to the house that you're going to shoot. That way it keeps the questions and the assumptions to a minimum, because that way they know that we're coming over to take photos of the house.
Given that example, would they be flying as recreational or as 107?
That would be one. Well, it just depends. If there's money changing hands, whether that's a gift card, whether that's a donation to your program, if it's some kind of indirect compensation, that's part 107. If it's just these guys are going out there, they're going to take photos, you know, with the intent not to collect anything for that effort. That's a way for they can build their portfolio, because you got to get experience. Once you get some photos and videos of things that you have done, now you have proof that you can do certain things. So as long as the intent going out there is, I'm going to take this, I don't have my 107 yet, you know, as long as no money changes hands, whether that's directly or indirectly, then we're covered.
Awesome. Just want to let everybody know if there's any questions on that, feel free to put them into the Q&A. And that way we can kind of address those questions that may come up.
Okay, so a little bit more on the, a lot of the same rules apply on the commercial side as well. But notice that now, instead of, if you look down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about flying over people, it says, do not fly your drone over people unless they are your crew members. So these people would be like your visual observer. It could be the actual pilot in command who has the remote pilot certification. It could be some people that you put out in certain areas for crowd control to keep people out of areas. So those would be considered your crew members. If you were going down to the football field to do photos or video of the band or of the football team, that is not your crew. That is not your crew. Those are just mere bystanders. They're not participants. Your crew members are participants in that drone operation, not the people that you're there to record. That seems to be a sticking point.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. You're keeping your drone in line of sight. So if you guys are standing up FPV programs, that drone has to be registered. And if you use FPV goggles, you also must use a visual observer, because otherwise, once you put that headset on, you lose all ability to see what is entering your airspace. You may hear it, but you don't know where it's coming from. So visual observers are awesome. They really do help boost your confidence when you're flying. You can't pilot or be the visual observer for more than one drone at a time. So I used to fly with kids out back. I assigned each one of them a visual observer, and then I watched. And we would do 3 drones, and I put them in quadrants, right, around the school. And they stayed over here about 125 feet and up. Staying low to the ground is a natural thing that we want. I want to keep it close and low. The problem with that is down below tree line, you've got a lot of drama just waiting. Tree limbs, power lines, power poles, light poles. You've got a lot of things down there. If you put that kid up at about 100 feet and let them just rip and run however they want, you're not going to have issues. But it's once you you come down low, that's when you really got to keep up with them. Okay, this one says, don't fly over people unless they're directly participating in your operation. And don't fly from a moving vehicle or an aircraft unless you're flying your drone over a sparsely populated area. Now, I created a slide just for this sparsely populated term because the FAA has not defined this. So I contacted the FAA integration office, and I have the number for them in a later slide. but we did a calculation based on some court cases. 1 acre is equal to about 91 yards on a football field. Sparsely populated is actually 2 people in a 91 yard or 1 acre plot of land. Okay. So taking the drone to the lake, and all these boaters and skiers and these floaters are out there, if there's only 6 of them, that's probably not sparsely populated, but we could think that, right? You tell me a few, man, we may have a difference of opinion on what a few is, or maybe that's a lot, right? So this just gives you some idea. This is nothing written in stone, but it just helps people visualize when we use the term sparsely populated, what that really looks like. So it doesn't vary from person to person.
Great example.
Okay, so requirements to get your certificate. Again, must be 16, must be able to read, write, speak, and understand English, physical and mental condition to safely operate a drone, and you're going to pass an aeronautical knowledge test.
Question.
Okay.
Do they have to actually fly the drone?
That's a good one. So unlike a driver's license, that you take a written part, and then you also take basically a driver's test, I guess they call it, where you demonstrate the fact that you can control that vehicle. To get a remote pilot certification, you don't have to do that. No flight proficiency required. So you're just going to pass that 60 question test, and then you're in. You're one of the guys and gals. You must have that hard copy certificate with you whenever you fly, and that certification is good for 2 years. And that's actually 24 calendar months. If you test on the 12th of the month, your certificate doesn't expire until the 30th of the month or 31st of the month, whichever that may be. Your certificate, when it arrives in the mail, will have a date issue. It does not have an expiration date. It never expires. You lose currency if you don't continue to take these tests. There's 2 tests that you actually will take. One is the initial test. It's 60 questions, 2-hour time limit, costs $160. Then 24 months later, you're going to take a recurrent test. It's comprised of only 40 questions, and it's 1.5 hours, same price at $160. Now I'll show you what, because everybody wants to know. There's no intense math on these type tests. There are terms and concepts that, unless you were in some other aviation or aeronautical type course, you probably wouldn't get exposed to. Longitude, latitude, reading sectional charts, weather, that's something that normally gets some of the people. But anyway, there's 5 categories: regulations, airspace, weather, loading, and performance, and in operations. And these 5 areas will make up that 60 question test. When you take the recurrent test, section 3, weather, and section 4, loading and performance, they're not on the test. So a lot of people, that's a big relief when you don't have the weather, because you read a couple of weather reports. They talk about clouds and rain and mature stages of storms and that sort of thing. And people are glad to see that that's no longer there. So the recurrent test, 40 questions, not to say it's easier. It's more of the sectional charts, reading, classes of airspace and that sort of thing, but you just don't get the weather and loading and performance. Okay.
So we're at about 12:40. Okay.
Wow.
So I know. So
Okay.
I just
Okay.
give you kind of a time check there.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to breeze through these next couple slides. So if you guys are interested in scholarships for your students, we actually, Drone Pilot Ground School, we offer 2. We have one for high school students and we have one for college. High school, there's two options. The student 16 years of age and older can apply. If they get accepted, then once they pass the official test, we will reimburse them the test fee. If you as a teacher would like to use the curriculum in your classroom for the entire class, you can send us a letter. Your students doesn't have to be 16. You can send us a letter, and we'll, along with the names of your students, and we will enroll the whole group. And at that point, if someone does go ahead and pass a test, we don't reimburse the test fee. College scholarships, we opened that up 1 April and we closed it. I think it's on the 15th of May. We give away 2 $1,000 scholarships each year, and high school seniors are eligible to apply. Okay, these are the helpful links that I spoke about before. Drone registration, $5. FAA webinars. So you will kind of get drained on finding things for these students to do after a period of time because it's not new to you, and you feel like I've already went over this stuff. FAA has webinars, and so there's some historic things in there that you can go, and it helps everyone be smarter together. The FAA UAS Integration Office. This phone number right here can save you a whole lot of time and effort when it comes to researching or getting an answer to a problem. I call them often because I never want to give out bad information. If I can't find a source, I call these guys and they're right there to help. There's 3 guides that you'll find very beneficial. The steps to getting your drone license, training your visual observer, and then how to get your airspace authorizations. There's 2 apps that are definitely go-to. One is AirMap. It's got a nice, I like the interface, user interface on AirMap a little better than some of the others, but it's available for Android or Apple, and it's also available from your computer. UAV Forecast, it is a weather app. You can get a free version of it. I would recommend the free version, but it looks at a lot of things, satellites, temp, precipitation, cloud cover. It looks at a lot of things to tell you whether or not today's a good day to fly. It also has another little option there called a wind profile. You click on the wind profile, it tells you what the wind speed and gust speeds are aloft. It runs it from 33 feet up to 5,000. So if you were going to fly someday and you're getting 250 feet, 300 feet, or whatever, you don't have to speculate on your wind. You can just click the app and it'll tell you what it is for your location.
I'm going to step in here real quickly.
Okay.
If you have a question in the chat, what is your recommendation for photo editing programs for non-flyers?
If your school uses Mac, and a lot of schools do, you could use iMovie. That's a way to get their feet wet. It's already there. It's free. There are free. I forget the name of that. There are free options. It starts getting deep once you leave like iMovie. iMovie's kind of a drag and pull. It's more straightforward than some. When you get into more professional versions of editing, it gets deep quick. And so I think getting the kids into something simple to start with. Now, depending on if they've had that in their school, they may be ready for something else, but there is a ton of free downloadable programs that you can get. This one is made by a company, Blackmagic. It's something 16.
DaVinci Resolve.
Yes, DaVinci Resolve 16. That is absolutely free, and you will definitely be able to grow into that. But again, that initially getting started, there's a ton of YouTube videos, and it'll get you on track. Yeah. Okay. All right. This resources and tips. Talk to your school about insurance coverage for your drones. Drones are considered aircraft by insurance companies. They are not just another piece of equipment that gets added to the school's inventory list. Have that conversation up front before, and I'm saying before something happens, in the event that something should happen. I never had anything happen, but there's always a first time, right? The Part 107 certification is beneficial to schools. That's one of the, that's a notch in their belt when it comes to graduation time. And since it is a recognized certification, that test fee is actually eligible for reimbursement through either the STEM or the CTE office, whatever you call them, division. The district CTE coordinator can help with grants. I got an $8,600 grant. The lady actually helped me. She wrote it. I was totally blown away, but she was so interested in what I was trying to do with the drone program that she herself wrote that grant and got me $8,600, and I had about 2 weeks to spend it. So I bought Phantom 4s and Inspire 1s, and We had a blast, dude. Absolute blast. Set up an organizational email account. If a lot of schools don't do that, military, we're really big into organizational accounts because we're so transient. I needed to have an account that multiple people or even different people can monitor the same traffic. You know, having everything in your name, it will cause you issues if you leave that program, move to a different class, or we're going to take drones from this class and put it in another one. Now everything has to get transferred over. And a lot of times all that starts with re-downloading all that stuff for the new person. So it's a real pain. So if you can get an organizational email account set up to your IT department, that would be awesome.
That is an excellent tip right there.
Yeah, it will definitely help.
Mhm.
Add your school name to the drone registration. We talked about that one. If you viewing devices, just so you know, a drone does not come, well, some majority of drones does not come with a display built in. Okay, so you're going to either use a phone, yours, you're going to use an iPad, iPad mini, something along those lines. You got to have some kind of viewing device to see the telemetry data that the drone's putting out. Get that through your IT department. They may have them, you can sign them out, or if you even have to purchase them, I saved about $60 by getting them to my IT department rather than me going to Best Buy, Amazon, or something like that to get the products. Reach out to faculty and local community for projects. It also helps students with volunteer hours. If you're interested in getting your own certification, dronepilotgroundschool.com, we actually have a STEM discount. You can enter STEM 75 in the coupon code at checkout, save $75, and you get lifetime access. From now until the end of the month, we're having a Black Friday sale. You can get $107 off. You can still go to that same link, but all the links have now been set up for the $107 discount. So that's pretty awesome.
107. Aha.
107.
I get it.
Okay, wrapping up. So there's a lot to know when it comes to flying drones, and you'll see that the water gets deeper and deeper by the week and the month that you stay in this kind of program. Read that owner's manual. I know I said it before, but there's just so much information in there about settings and things you need to do prior to flight that if you don't get in the habit of setting it up and practicing the way you're going to play, you'll miss something and things happen.
Also, just to kind of throw in there, be aware of the space that you're in, because some of the higher end drones will fly well, but some of them will cross frequencies. And so you don't want to have too many in one small, tight location.
Right. Very true. Learn the classes of airspace. You'll have to do this, even a recreational pilot or a commercial pilot. You still got to understand that airspace because now everyone needs to get an airspace authorization. You and your students are now ambassadors for the drone industry. So people watch. You have to practice what you preach. And then when you're confronted, it's an educational process. A lot of times people are curious, but they come across in totally the wrong way. And so rather than it being a heated discussion, it can be, hey guy, come here and take a look at this. And then you share some of your knowledge and next thing you know, everything drops and we're now friends. Stay up to date on policy changes and laws. Recreational pilot training and testing is forthcoming. Drone Pilot, or actually UAV Coach is our parent company, but we're going to be a tester for the recreational test when that happens. We don't know exactly when that's coming, but the FAA there's some statements out on their website now that talks about recreational pilots must pass this test in order to fly. So that's coming. You'll hear rumblings of remote ID. We're hoping to hear something in December next month about that. Not a big deal, sort of. But basically, we're trying to get all these drones, well, they are trying to get them on a network so that they can monitor the traffic. They want to know where the controller is and where the drone is at all times. This will stop the rogue things from happening like at the stadiums, right? That's a no-fly zone. 3 miles around that stadium, 1 hour before the game to 1 hour after, those are no-fly zones. But what happened down in Miami, some guy brought a drone, got over that, the Super Bowl. That's a bad deal. So anyway, My
Well,
email's at the bottom. If you have any questions about any of this as you look through, will they get the slides, Desi?
Yes, I believe they will. So
Okay,
we'll-
awesome.
We'll be able to just reach out to us. We'll provide those to Ken and he can also put them out. And so it looks like we only have about 4 or 5 minutes left to wrap up. If anybody had a question that they wanted to throw into the Q&A. And if there's not, we just so appreciate the information that you have provided. I knew it would be a great presentation. So much great information. Mike's contact information is right there. So if you do want to take a screenshot really quick, like any last words that you'd like to say, Mike?
I think the drone industry, it is moving forward. It is changing quickly. Tangible jobs will vary location to location. I being in Arkansas, we're pretty much agricultural. And so not a lot of people fly here. The interest wasn't here. It was very frustrating for me. So, kind of take that with a grain of salt. If it works for a year or 2 years, maybe you're going to have a group of kids that's just going to love it. And maybe they'll step up and, there's college degrees now in unmanned aircraft systems and such. The Air Force has jobs. These kids are flying drones. So there's opportunities there and more will come, but it just may not be by the time this kids gets ready for that summer job. So just don't lose heart. We're just within that growth stage right now.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Mike, for a great presentation.
Very welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to us. All right. And we'll give a few minutes while people jump off. In that way, if they have any questions.
Sure.
We have a couple more still here. Not sure if they're wanting to ask a question or still logging off.
So I take it the next session's getting ready to start?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm on that panel, so I
Oh,
need to make sure that I
go.
Yes. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, if you get questions,